Hi there, welcome to part 2 of the Elite Dangerous Playguide. My name is Dan and I'll be taking you through this game. So here we go. In this section we're going to take a look at the exploring sector, and exploring this huge vast galaxy would probably take a vast amount of time on its own. So for this experiment I've flown away from the usual systems in the Federation, and as you can see we are still Surveyor rank. The blue rank there on the left is still Surveyor, and hopefully by the end of this guide that rank will have increased. You can see we are some way from home base there. There's Lewitton Star, Hecate, and well, there's the Galactic Central Core. So if we look at the galaxy map there, we are surrounded, it seems, by unknown, uncharted territory. And if we take a look at this, we are actually heading towards, making for in this guide, a place called California Nebula. By typing that in, we can find that on the galaxy map, and that isn't a place that we can fly to directly, I don't think, because that does not have any navigation tabs connected to that. But if we select a system in that area, we can select the Pathfinder tab and we can make our way towards, hopefully, the California Nebula. At this point I must apologise once again for the stuttering and the graphical detail, which I'll go into later on, but for the moment we've discovered an undiscovered system. That means that when we click on these system planets, these astral bodies will be undiscovered and we will be unable to find out what those are until we're flying out there and discover those. So by pressing the 1 key we can highlight on the left hand panel all the astral bodies in the area, and if they highlight there as a belt cluster, which is a cluster of rocks around the central body, well, those are virtually useless to be scanned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip on through to the main body itself, planet, and we can press the T key and automatically start to scan. We are waiting for our astral item to finish scanning. We can even let it carry on doing that and select the next target ready to be scanned. Well, almost. And as soon as that finished scanning, we can select that target and move on to the next one. That thing is close enough to where we are at the moment that we don't have to fly to that, and you saw we didn't have to fly to the previous one because it was close enough. And you can see we can start scanning this one because it is close enough. But if we go into Super Cruise, pressing the N key, we can go into Super Cruise and we can fly out there, and we can carry on scanning that item as long as we are within range. As we are dragged ever closer to that huge rock, the gravitational pull will drag us under, and it will drag us closer to that thing. You may notice that slow down appears in red as we are travelling too fast ordinarily to be scanning that thing, but if we are quick we can scan the thing before we overshoot, and sometimes the slow down mechanism is a little overcautious and we can get away with that. You can see right on the corner we are scanning through those belt clusters, and one tiny white dot in the corner reveals that those are belt clusters. When that dot disappears, that must be a planet. Exploring each part of a huge system does take time, and it will take time to fly out to all these places. And if they're within 10 light years, hopefully we should be able to scan those. And there are a few ingredients necessary that we had to bring with us on this trip to make it possible. Number 1, it helps if you have good scanners. They don't have to be A-rated scanners, but certainly C-rated scanners are enough. That means we can scan things from a greater distance. The second object that we need in our inventory is the Discovery Scanner, and every ship is provided with a Discovery Scanner as standard as soon as you buy those, and you can sell those for an easy 1,000 credit profit. But we will certainly need either the basic, the intermediate, or in this case the advanced discovery scanner, and that costs around about 1.5 million credits. The third and the final ingredient that we'll need on this journey is the detailed surface scanner, and every time I scan one of these items it pops up detailed scan complete. And the detailed scanner will highlight the obvious details on the planet, and that means it's worth more. So the more details we can scan, the better. And apparently, coming in the game at some point, there will be a level 2 and a level 3 detailed scanner, and those are already available in the right hand panel in the details menu, but unfortunately those are not yet in the game. So we'll gain extra credits for not only scanning these, but detailed surface scanning these, and when they appear, when we actually find those and scan those, they will appear there in the system map, and all the walls with the information provided are actually first discovered. That is the theme of this play guide. All these items which I'm scanning now have never been discovered by anybody else on this planet, and you can find, as we shall see, some amazing sights in this galaxy, and we can fly out and investigate every single one of them. At this point that the completely undiscovered are right on the edge of our known universe, and certainly if you fly beyond 200 light years away from Sol or your home base, whether that is in the Federation or in the Imperial sector or even in the Alliance, usually 200 light years plus will get you in the range of these undiscovereds. But I've actually found within the system itself there are undiscovereds, and even the Locale system that we found earlier on that needed to be discovered, and we needed to go in there with the discovery scanner, fly out to all of those before we found what we were looking for, and we will return to Locale again in a later play guide. And again, I'm not sure how to pronounce some of these. I don't think it really matters as long as you understand what I'm talking about. So that's another one, detailed scanned. And let's move on. If it appears as a star there in the radar, you can see it is a white star. Those are worth even more when we scan those, and you can see the subsystems peeling off from the main star, and the systems will need to be scanned individually. But stars can usually be scanned from greater distance because they are so huge. It usually doesn't take so long to get there. See, I'm actually choosing to disconnect the tracking, and sometimes that flies to the location even more quickly, and you can see we still have a long path to go to get all the way down there to that California Nebula, and we will be making that journey in this guide, and we can even study our location while we are flying around to an astral body. So we can see there, we can click on each one of these systems and that will direct the map across. We can't do that in any other fashion, but we can move up and down, left and right, and you can see all these journeys will have to be made. I'm actually choosing to use the most economical fuel route because that visits every single system, and out here where virtually every system is undiscovered, it's possible to visit everyone and gain a huge profit. But you may wonder why we are here, and that is because we've just visited the system known as Polaris. And Polaris is actually very far away indeed, but we have just flown there, and you can see it is very far away from where we are at the moment, and it is very far away from the California Nebula. But I flew over to Polaris, and unfortunately, clicking on that, it said I needed a system permit to visit that place. But you can see all these other places completely unknown, not a starbase, not anything required in there by mankind, so all of those systems will be completely new, and it will take perhaps a lifetime to scan all those. So we are still getting closer to that undiscovered, and all these have a really long name, and at least they have been named, but unfortunately most of those are not possible to memorize, so you can brag to your friends that you discovered something brand new. When that happens, your name or your tag will appear on the system map of everybody's system map whenever they venture into this system. So in this particular system, the Life School Amiga will appear, but only once I've taken all this data back to an inhabited system. And you have to fly maybe 20 light years away from the body that you scanned to be able to sell it, because it would be too common knowledge otherwise if it is tried to be sold locally. But if you fly those 20 light years, which is, well, one jump in this craft, then you can sell that data, and if it is a unique discovery, you are the first one, then you will gain a bonus for each unique discovery and your name in the system map. The closer we are to that astral body, the faster that thing will scan, and the larger the body is, the faster that will scan. So if we are right next to that thing, then it will only take a number of seconds, but if we are a long distance away, that could take anything up to a minute. If that radar thing disappears in the brackets, you can see right in the centre of that screen, those large brackets dictate our scanning area, and if that object disappears above or below either side of those huge brackets, unfortunately that thing will stop being scanned and you will have to line that thing back up all over again. And if we are already travelling too fast at that point, disconnecting is an issue, so we'll have to line that thing up and scan it again from scratch. You can see, even though we are scanning the system, the path will still remain there, the pathfinder will still remain, and if we press F10 or the delete key, it is on my system now, and then set that to the next system on that path, and we can then frame shift out. But before we do that, let's just finish scanning this entire system. It is quite large and we can gain quite some money, but again, some systems require us to fly great distances, and sometimes those great distances are quite tedious, sometimes, to say the least. So to make life a little more entertaining, it helps to observe the stars and the planets in the area and the colours and that kind of thing, and then at least the scenery is picturesque enough to take our mind away from things. And really exploring in this part of the deep galaxy is entertaining for a different reason, because you can see on the radar no other ships are there. There are no pirates, there are no human players, there are absolutely no thing, and space stations as well. So this place is out on a limb, and we feel out on a limb travelling through this zone, and if we get attacked, well, we haven't really got much to fear because we do have lots of things to fire with, and we'll see the attacking mode in a future play guide, so we can defend ourselves. But out here, miles and miles away from the nearest station, we can't actually rebuild ourselves if we get attacked. We can't repair, we cannot refuel unless we have the fuel scoop, which is perhaps the fourth, well, it definitely is the fourth essential ingredient if we were to make this run a fuel scoop, because you will not see another station for maybe hours or maybe even days. And this play through from, let's face it, almost Polaris to all the way through to the California Nebula did take me 4 days to record this and complete and get back home. So you're about to see 4 days footage squeezed into 1 hour. And amongst that 4 days footage you can see an odd purple planet there, and we will certainly get to see a few sights on this journey. And in the meantime, let's continue scanning, and hopefully we won't have too much now to go. You can see those things appearing on the left there, systems panel, and the local navigation panel there will give us those names, and it will tell us the next target to scan. The cash value that we'll gain from these discoveries also depends on the type of discovery. So if we select the system map once again, we've discovered the Sun, but by clicking on these we can see, or hopefully can see, it says that they are high mineral content planets, high metal content there, and a high metal content discovery will be worth a lot more to be discovered, and there are lots of different types of things to discover, of course, but the high metal content ones are perhaps one of the best. There are black holes, there are water worlds, Earth-likes, rocky planets, ice worlds, and fireballs, and everything in between. So we managed to overshoot our destination there, looking at the system map, trying to discover whether we discovered all those metal-rich content planets. And sometimes the colour of those on that system map will show us whether those things are worth scanning or not. But we do have other indications. If you notice, every astral body will project green landing circles whenever we get close to that, and if it's a huge astral body it may have 3 or 4 circles on there from a huge distance, and if we can see circles around a planet, that usually means it's either a big planet or it's worth scanning. So approach vectors definitely need to be noted, and of course if you can see those from as far back as the star, they must be worth scanning because they must be huge. At the moment we are scanning very small bodies, and so those green approach vectors will not appear straight away, so we get close to those. And let's just fast forward and get to another one. You can see the first green approach signal there, and then the next one will appear there, and by the time we get there it's a very small body, and that really wasn't worth scanning at all. But it will appear in the left hand panel if that is an ice crystal planet or high metal content. You can see on this system, and this entire system is high metal content, so this entire system was well worth scanning. Well, virtually there is a rocky planet there. Of course the barren rocky planets won't be worth anything, and the lowly rocky moons won't be worth scanning even at all. So if we are going to go through these systems and spend our time, it's certainly worth picking and choosing the ones which are worth the most value. Moving on to the next system, it is important to get into a pattern of scanning. As soon as we enter that system, we can press the number 2 key, in this case on the keypad, to set the engines up to 25% thrust, and when we get to a certain distance we get a sound effect. We can then press the 0% thrust key, and at the same time press the T key to begin scanning, and at the same time we can hold down in this case the left mouse button, and our advanced surface scanner will then scan that object. In this case we have just scanned and we have found no other objects except for the main star which we just scanned. So after gaining an amount of fuel, which isn't far at all, we have an advanced fuel scoop which really scoops that thing up at an advanced rate. So that's what we do to scan each star. If we can move through this process fairly quickly, it means we can get on with that as soon as we enter a new system. Fly down to that sweet spot, hit the 0 key, hit the T key as soon as we are anywhere near the centre of the star. You can see very small writing, undiscovered, or explored actually, at the beginning, before we even start scanning. And if any other people have found that, then we will find their name on the system map. And then you can decide whether it's worth continuing and scanning the rest or not. Even though other people have discovered this place before us, if there these high metal content planets, huge gas giants, it might still be worth scanning those. The more discoveries are returned to the known federation or a known system, then those will be worth less. But you have to imagine that only a handful of people have ever flown out this far, so even if it says it has been previously discovered by maybe one other person, that discovery will still be worth a heck of a lot, because that discovery may have only still been discovered by that one other person, and so that discovery is only worth a lot less if it has been discovered by hundreds. So again, in this part of the universe, hundreds of people will not have scanned these astral bodies, but of course the prestige of being the first to find a system is the thing which really beckons the explorer. And if we can, just like this, if we can find a system completely unexplored, even a big pile of rocks there is completely valueless until we realise that they are our rocks, and they will soon have our name all over those, thanks to scanning them. The other surprise is entering the system and finding a huge number of bodies that we need to scan, and you can see the first has already been scanned by someone else, but the second, including the star itself, which is worth a lot of money to scan, and that is undiscovered, and so we'll have to fly out there and we'll have to discover those ourselves. But we really do not know when we approach a system how many astral bodies that thing contains, because they will not appear on a local system map until we fly out there and scan those, so we can't inspect those from a distance on the galaxy map and expect to find what is there, because it is basically unexplored. And so it is our job to fly out and explore those, and you never know, as I say, the system may only contain the star itself, or a number of stars, or a number of planets, or as we have seen, 17, 30, 40, even 50 astral bodies can be in any one system, and apparently the record is over 100 astral bodies, including, it has to be said, all those belt clusters in one system. So scanning hundreds of items will give you lots of cash. So let's zoom in on this particular one. This one is so small that we have to get right up close to that before we can even finish scanning that. And it says it's an anarchy icy planet. While I was recording this, I was also messing with my Screen Ripper setup, and therefore it's not very good quality, and the compression used means sometimes there are a few judders and a few blocks. But let's move on to get up close and personal to a few of these astral bodies, and these really are hot, so we can't really get too close, otherwise we'll take on damage.
Fuel scooping complete.
You can see in this system a huge star in the centre of that, which dwarfs everything else, but we can discover, as you can see, huge gas giants, including a water world, hopefully, and those have a number of bodies floating around those, a few moons. So let's waste no more time, let's discover those things, and let's fly out there and let's see how much they are worth. Moving through those belt clusters once again, we can move through those, we can notice the dots on the edge of that screen, and we can even press the middle mouse button, as we shall see maybe in the next play guide, and that will mean that will disconnect our head from the headlock, and we can actually look and use the left hand panel and see what it has discovered at the same time. But with the headlock you can still make out which one of those are the belt clusters and which ones are the planets. And I know some people actually swear that investigating every single thing is the best thing to do, and then everything will appear as an icon there on the left hand menu on the navigation field. but I find that we are only ever going to visit this system once in our entire lifetime, so belt clusters are worth avoiding, and obviously you don't get virtually any money for scanning those. You will get a basic discovery value, but the basic discovery value is only very small, and you won't get anything for detailed surface scanning. So it helps to stay outside at a range to the system you are scanning, and simply if you move ahead there you can scan simple things in one go without having to fly all the way in there. And of course, if we can get right on top of all these systems, then it should be possible to scan many in one go. But as you can see, it doesn't take long if you avoid the belt clusters to navigate through and scan those. And once one is ticked off, that's another job well done. Returning to the system map, we can see our progress, and we know that every one of those labels will have our name above those when this guide is over, so it's worth checking those. And you can see once we get somewhere near the vicinity, I'm slowing down, and then I can scan all the others in a flight path, and hopefully if I choose a good flight path I should be able to scan those and sweep the area pretty quickly. We have now scanned most of the bodies in this system, and you'll be glad to know that the exploring won't be focusing too much more on the scanning of endless systems. But you can see some of these astral bodies are really amazing. You can see the California Nebula around the corner of that astral body, but let's just move ahead and check it out. You can see the amazing ring system on that purple planet, perhaps one of the biggest ring systems I've ever seen in this entire game. And we can scan the items around here, but what we're actually going to do is we're actually going to see if it is possible to fly into that very small gap in the very center of that planet, and hopefully we can zoom through that and have a great time doing it. And so let's scan the very last one of these bodies, and hopefully it won't take too much longer. There it goes. And then let's angle our way towards the center full thrust. And is that possible? Well, unfortunately not. Unfortunately, we're not get anywhere near that planet. It says we're too close, and we can't jet our way through and slingshot through just like that. So you can see, until we boost out of there, we are virtually stranded. You can see the tremendous detail on each of these rings. We can fly all the way down there and inspect every single boulder, every single rock in that orbital field orbiting that planet. And we shall see later on battles as well in those rings. And that is certainly fun to do. But in the meantime, let's press that N key, find our escape vector, fly out of there and boost away. And we can now clean up finally the area, and let's move on to the next area. And again, let's start that process all over again. Sometimes you may discover 0, and sometimes you may discover that you've actually dropped out of hyperspace too close to even scan that thing. So this astral body is pretty volatile. Let's scan, and we can find nothing in the area, and we are still scanning away at that star. It is still unexplored. So there you go, that is the detailed scan completed. Yet another anarchy planet, yet another brown dwarf it says, even though brown dwarves are generally purple in this game. And that's the system complete. So let's move on to another one, and if we have unfortunately any of our weapons out, I'll say the frame shift drive cannot be operated until we pack those away. And hopefully the advanced scanners won't interfere with that process, but you can see heat levels are critical, so when you're boosting from one area to the next you have to be careful of that heat, and you don't want to be sucked in by that gravity either. But let's fast forward now. We're gaining progress towards our California Nebula. In fact, we are probably halfway there, and we have scanned quite a number of places already. Let's scan this one, and we find a number of planets, pink planets there, which are affected by the light streaming from the star. So at this point the colours of a system or the galaxy are bringing themselves into the fore, and moving into the California Nebula we'll see a few colours. So the beauty and the majesty of this huge expanse of space is on offer, and you can see every sun, every star will have an active surface, and the corona and solar flares, so everything from a real solar system is apparently in there, and every solar system apparently moves like a solar system would. So physics and real world physics engines have been used in this game. And there's another pink solar system. Sometimes it's worth flying out to the biggest astral bodies. Let's just check those, see if there's anything in range, see if there's anything worth scanning, and no. So you can see the California Nebula on the horizon above many of these destinations. And again, the colours of the surrounding area, if we scan this area, will have tainted all of these astral bodies red, because the star itself is red, and only 9 bodies, but all of those are coloured by the light, and that is a unique effect in this game, perhaps. So let's not bother scanning most of those, let's just skip on, and perhaps I did scan most of those at the time. And brown dwarfs again, let's see if we can survive this one. Let's manage to find 11 new astral bodies, and the large one at the end, undiscovered, will soon have my name upon it. Let's check out a few of the discoveries that I discovered along the way. The great graphics. You can see the Milky Way, the band of the Milky Way there is always magnificent to see on the horizon, and that will follow us throughout the galaxy. You can see great ice world, ice rock on the horizon, and of course the wonderful crimson suns that we've seen already, which have an amazing glow. Some of the Earth-likes and the rocky planets have polar ice caps, and those polar ice caps are quite detailed, and you can see the detail on the surface as we get ever closer to that nebula. And you can see in this particular place we've managed to find a few Earth-likes, and Earth-likes can be water worlds, or basically anything with clouds and an atmosphere is an Earth-like planet. Those are worth perhaps the most, except for black holes in this game. If you can discover a black hole, or if you can be the first to discover a black hole, that's even better. So let's check out these planets, and every symbol, the white symbol you can see on the readout, will change slightly depending on the body that we are scanning. And having scanned this one, it's a water world, and this is mostly water, so this is another water world, and you can see it is completely different because these are procedurally drawn. Everything will be completely random. Every one of these worlds will have its own weather pattern. Sometimes you can see those spinning away, sometimes you can see the planet or the astral body itself spinning away at high speed, so everything moves in real time except for us. And we are using star dreaming technology known as super cruise to super cruise around this galaxy and around this universe. So let's take another look. This is an orange planet, a desert planet, roasted hot by the sun. It is baked alive there, and you can see the mineral content is emerging. As we get close to that planet, you can even see volcanic remnants as red dots which appear on that thing like a rash, and those red volcanic emissions are yet again procedurally drawn, and they make a great atmosphere to this game. In later revisions, the producers have promised that we can land on planets, fly around at low altitude just like we could on Frontier. So these planets are a prelude to being able to land and maybe mine and refine these planets ourselves. So sometimes it is worth discovering Earth-likes and water worlds, because they may be a resource of the future. This colourful aspect of the universe makes it worth exploring, and exploring things for the very first time means sometimes your eyes only are the first ones to see that. And getting closer and closer to that nebula, I'll just show you an approach vector to the top of a system. And of course, if you can get that solar system on level with us on the top and get in range, then we shouldn't need to fly any closer. We can just scan those one after another. But I'm actually showing you this system being scanned because in the background you may just be able to detect a red glow, and that is because we are actually now in the California Nebula. And some parts of the nebula are more easy to distinguish than others, and on the outskirts of the nebula it appears as a red glow, and that might not appear too impressive at this point. So let's carry on scanning the rest of this field. And in the nebula itself there are no undiscovereds, because that is a popular place where people like to visit, and humans have already been there and discovered everything all around. So there's no point discovering those all over again unless you want the extra cash. So let's move on through the nebula, on through to the next sector. And each sector is again difficult to memorize, and you can't just type those in. But now that we are in the California Nebula, you can see on the horizon there are remnants of that thing. And so let's plot our way deeper into the nebula and see if we can find any more graphical detail. When we arrive, we won't automatically see the nebula straight away. It isn't actually flowing all around us, and it will be difficult to see because at this point we are still in the sun's corona. You can see this land has been explored by at least one person before, and I'd say many dozens have already flown through this nebula trying to find somewhere picturesque and scenic. So you can see as we boost, that nebula is getting closer on the horizon. You can see that appearing. Let's go to the next place, and hopefully it will linger on in the next place so that I can show you what the nebula looks like. So let's move away from the corona and let's move into deeper space. We can see now we are right in the middle of that nebula, right on the corner, on one of the thickest parts, or at least hopefully. A little hard to see there on the map, but hopefully when we exit the map the background will have started to appear. And now that we're moving, you can see now the nebula moving into view. Unfortunately, we don't fly through a gas cloud like Star Trek and the Wrath of Khan, but that would have been exciting, but unfortunately we can't do that. But the 360-degree view means we can view this nebula, fly around within it. There are very few astral bodies in this particular system, but flying around a nebula with this great background is a little novel. And out of all the places that I've visited in the nebula, this is the place that gave me the best background to rip for this play guide. So I hope you can see there is detail on offer. It is very picturesque and sometimes worth flying out here to discover these zones for yourself. And so that's the California Nebula. We just managed to scan the object before we flew straight past it. And many picturesque items to fly to in this game, and you might be very surprised to find out that Voyage 1 and 2 are also in this game to find and fly to. And of course there are a few Earth-likes that we've discovered already, as well as Chiron and all the items in our particular solar system. And we've already tried to visit a number of stars, and the most famous stars can be flown to. Of course, we can type those in on the galaxy map, and we've tried to get to Polaris already, but unfortunately that cannot be flown to because we need a permit. And as far as I know, we'll only get that permit once we are elite ranking in exploration, and that won't happen for several million yet. But at the end of all this, hopefully, now that we've explored our way through the nebula and all these sub-systems, all of which have been scanned before, we can now move away from this great area and stop admiring this wonderful view, and we can make our way back to Lewitton's star. Lewitton's star is just over 1,000 light years from our current position, and unfortunately the galaxy map can only pathfind routes up to 1,000 light years away, so we'll have to move slightly closer to home or select a body slightly closer to us in order to plot that distance. You can see we are still some way off there, and it's very long to get all the way there, so plotting the fastest routes, you can see the fastest routes are selected is definitely recommended, and it's going to be a long journey home, 1,000 light years all the way back, so it will take many jumps, as you can imagine. But as I say, if we do find somewhere a little nearer, then that should work and we can plot our way there. Now we are slightly nearer. Let's try that again. You can see we are still in the nebula. We're still trying to plot our way out of there, and so let's actually find somewhere that's pretty near. Let's fly to that, and by the time we've got there, then we should be nearer to Lewitton's star, and that should mean we can navigate all the way there in one jump. So let's say goodbye for the final time to the nebula and these great atmospheric graphics. Now that we are just a little closer, you can see the dotted path. That means we'll need to refuel before we get home. The dotted path means that we don't have enough fuel to make it, given the fuel tank we have at the moment. Luckily we have the fuel scoop, the fourth essential ingredient, and without that we probably would not be able to get this far in the game at all. So on the way back I noticed yet another undiscovered, and these names are above here because I've discovered them all. You can see I've worked through this entire system. I've found a great many bodies, and I've found the gas giants and the moons surrounding those. So even on the journey back to Lewitton's star we managed to find some brand new undiscovered territory, and this means we should have a number of pages of data to claim when we return back to civilization. Continuing the recording, we've found yet another undiscovered. We are still some way from home, and we have travelled some way already, and this sector is obviously unpronounceable, but here we go. This is another undiscovered, and we can find there some likely candidates, including that huge gas giant which looks a little like Jupiter. So let's fly out there and let's look forward to discovering those, and let's see what they look like. So this is part of that same system. We're still continuing to scan that, and this isn't the Jupiter planet, but flying around these things at high speed, and I'm speeding up this footage again to get through this, but getting through these at high speed with these low level pursuits is great. And with the ASP we can even look down, and even with the Type 6 we can actually look down in our cockpit and admire the planet disappearing beneath our feet. In this next clip we can see we are approaching the Jupiter-like planet, but that is on the dark side, so we can't really see much of that. You can see we've just scanned a moon, that was another icy planet, so let's see if we can get close enough this time without getting pulled in. And these great planets do have a massive atmosphere, so at this point you can see we have now scanned the rest of the system, and we have scanned all the moons as well, and so all we need to do is admire this planet before we move on to the next system. In this game you may also see astral bodies revolving very quickly if they are supposed to do that in real life, and in this case you can see a white dwarf star that we are in the process of scanning now. You can see how fast that rotates, and I can't imagine how quickly that rotates in real life, but that's another star discovered, and it's great once again to see that surface detail, and we can really appreciate all the depth of surface detail which got piled into making this game, and solar flares and things like that. In the meantime we have arrived at my first home, Lewitton Star, and from here we will choose our next destination, and whichever station that we dock at when we are delivering a heavy cargo of cartographic data, that will automatically boost the station rating from basically nothing, neutral, to friendly, or if we are already friendly, it will boost us to allied status with that station, because cartographics are worth a lot. So in this case I'm selecting X in Indy because it's a station I want to be allied with, collect all those things in the bulletin board. This location isn't far away from my second home, Altair, and I like to save at Altair because it contains rares, just like this station, Mansfield Orbital, that we're visiting at the moment. And we'll cover rares in another play guide, but for the moment those claims will not be registered until they make a safe landing, so let's not waste those claims, let's just move into the station. We're some days away, I haven't even seen a station for all that time. Let's get back to the Federation. Let's waste no more time, let's boost our way closer and let's request docking from the station, and then we can just dive straight in there. As soon as we are maybe 3, maybe 2.5 kilometers from the entrance, then we can hit the 50% key, and that means that we should reduce just enough speed to get us through that letterbox. Unfortunately, docking bay 20 happens to be right at the entrance, and if we're moving too quickly, we'll overshoot it. Luckily, we can pilot the thing upside down, and when you see the rear docking platform, if you face the opposite way to that, then you must be facing the correct way to land, and we can only face one correct way in this game. Our stats, perhaps for the penultimate time, you can see we are still on Surveyor, and by scrolling down, by pressing the S key, then we can scroll all the way down to where it says Exploration. On the right you can see 779 systems explored, and that won't go up because we've explored all those, but our income from exploring will go up after we click on the universal cartographics. We can then inspect all those systems that we've just discovered, and we can see the prices going next to those. So you can see 11,000, 7,000, sometimes 27, 37,000 there gained for just scanning one system. And you never know, that system could be worth virtually nothing or everything, and if that system contains a black hole, that will probably be worth the most. But you can see individually we can check those things out. It can be interesting to explore our own exploration data to find out what we've just explored, and to find all those ice worlds and water worlds and earth-likes, which should be worth a lot of cash, and we can then see if that was actually worth it. We can click on those to sell those individually, or we can sell those by the page, and as you can see I'm moving through the various pages. I think there were at least 6 or 7 pages worth of data to be sold in this case, and many of those were special because they included very first discoveries. So let's continue checking out those higher price figures. You can see 57 grand for one single item discovered, and that's certainly worth it. And it doesn't really matter if you have the advanced discovery scanner or the basic. You'll certainly need the detailed surface scanner, and that will make sure that we get the top prices. Now that we've explored some of these mega hits that we found in the universe, and we've explored some of those, we're going to move to the top, and we can sell those by the page. If we have any first discovereds at this point, it will then appear on screen and list out all those first discovereds. At this stage in the game's development, it isn't possible to discover all those planets that you've just discovered except for this screen, and there will be no log of that or a special symbol above those systems that you actually first discovered an item within them. But if you are quick, you can write down a number of these systems so that you can visit those again and gloat all over your great discoveries. But you can see now I will speed up this process because it will take quite some time to get through all this data, and you can see the bonuses really do vary from a few hundred to a few thousand. If it's a great discovery, then you'll certainly gain a few thousand bonus on top of the thousands of credits that you managed to get in for those in the first place. You can see an average of at least 1,000 credits, and the multiple thousand credits values often balance those out, and 2,000 credits bonus is not to be sneezed at when you've just spent the best part of 4 days scanning maybe 100 systems in an unknown, uncharted part of the galaxy. So keeping our eyes open for one of the biggest cash earners in the game. I'm still keenly following these numbers, but so far about 2 grand is the best that we've managed to get from all these discoveries. So again, it takes quite some time to get through all these, so I am speeding these up, and there's nothing that can be done about the long names. Again, you'll probably never even visit these sectors ever again, so there really is no incentive, but it really is great to see a huge congratulations, and you can see a 17 grand bonus. But I'm not going to hang around on this screen forever because this is of interest only perhaps, so let's continue to speed that footage up just a little bit more, and then you can get some impression of all these discoveries and the great prestige of discovering all these and the great find when you get back home. So that is basically the exploring part of the game covered, and you can find inner solar systems and outer ones sprinkled around which definitely need discovering, and sometimes you can find mineral extraction sites and war zones only after you've been through the system and discovered all those. And if it's a local system, then it's probably worth scanning those, as we shall see later on, to take advantage of the mining and of the wars. So we are definitely coming to the end of the 20 minutes that it took just to print out all these names, and I've sped up this footage maybe 400%. We still haven't got there yet. Again, it would have been great if the game memorised these somewhere else so we could access these and maybe have those on the system map or even on the galaxy map. Well, sometimes those don't even appear in the galaxy map, even if you explored those. If you shut down the game and reload, sometimes they do. So we are coming to the very end of these now. Let's just take on the final few bonuses and check out our results. Another 20 grand bonus is given away, and when we accept, all our universal cartographics data will have been sold. That puts our balance up to 5.8 million. That's great. It means we can now afford a few more things. And you can see in the outfitting department we can now afford a few extra things, and we can even sell the detailed surface scanner and the advanced discovery scanner, which give us even more money. Up to 7.3. Of course, you don't need those unless you are doing an exploration mission, and you don't even need the fuel scoop either, with the massive tank that this thing has on board. That puts us up to 7.6 million, and the Trailblazer rank you can see on the left. And this was recorded slightly before the previous video, and that's why I had 102 credits in the bank, and the Trailblazer was in the previous video. At the end of all that, our station rep moves up to Allied. Our visited systems remain at 779, but look at the amount has gone up to almost 4 million credits now earned from all that exploration. Another couple of million and we'll be on to the next rank in the exploration data. And you can still see we have some way to go. We are merchant in the trading, and we are novice, unfortunately, in the fighting and the combat. So we still have a long way to go, and we still have much to do in this game. But you can see we're up to 24 million earned from all these expenditures, and we have 7 insurance claims. Basically, I got blown up in different craft and I've had to claim on the insurance, so that's why it is certainly worth buying those extra ships and having those as backup, like this Type 6. And to see our value of the current ship, we can purchase any ship, and we can see there our current ship is worth 15.2 million, and we have 7+ in the bank, so we can work out the prices from there. All we need to do is to repair ourselves and refuel, and then we are ready for the next game. And repairing, of course, is a 2-stage process. We have not used up any ammunition, so that should still be full, and now we have a fresh clean ship for the next part. Thank you.